Right. Okay. Let's. So, hi, Paula. Thank you for joining me today. I
Thanks,
guess
Patrick.
I'm lucky to have you, and this is our sort of fashion week's happening. We're sort of reaching out to different people, trying to get a sort of an understanding of industry, place in the market, how to get work, how to understand how to get work. And I guess this dips really into your sphere of knowledge. So what we do before we kind of start is get a sort of an understanding of your journey into your field and your market.
Okay, so I started about oh gosh, a long time ago in late 80s. I did a graphic design course down south, and then moved down here and stayed down here. And then I did 6 years in various design and branding agencies around London. And then after that, I joined a recruitment agency called Major Players, which was I think two or three people at the time. And then I joined as a director, and we grew it. So I stayed there for about 17 years, and then I moved on and did various other similar roles within recruiting. So now I freelance, so I tend to headhunt, mentor, um, give direction to companies and to individuals. So it works quite well.
Good. Okay, so I'm just going to share the screen you've lovely shared with me. There's my screen. Let me just check.
Mhm.
Where's your layouts gone? Okay, share. Can you see this screen? Your
Yeah.
screen?
Mhm.
Okay,
So if we go to, yeah, back to the beginning.
back to the beginning.
Mhm. I mean, you don't need to go to me actually, because that's
All
boring.
right, let me get to the.
So if we go straight to slide 3.
Okay, so
Okay.
perfect. Let's kick off. Take me
Okay.
through this journey.
So we're just going to cover off very quickly because we've only got an hour. How to be you, um, and then moving on to LinkedIn tips, profiles, and CV, and then also a little bit of networking. But it all tips into the same thing, really. Okay, so let's go. Can you move that on, please,
Oh,
Patrick?
sorry.
Okay. So the first thing I say to almost everyone, be it very junior or very senior, and to companies, it's about promoting yourself, finding something unique about you, something that's key and special. Be it a hobby you've got, a skill you have, or just something about your personality that's warm and that people are going to really like. Um, I feel like everyone's got something, and even if they don't believe they have, you can usually find it. And again, that's one of the things I really enjoy working with, groups of students or whatever, finding that thing and making them special and making them feel special as well. Okay.
Move on.
Mhm. So a few CV tips. What makes it stand out? What makes it relevant? Again, Patrick will share this with people if they need it moving further forward. So if we move forward a bit, Patrick.
Yep.
So the thing about a CV is making it simple and straightforward because time is short nowadays. It used to be it was 2 or 3 pages long, depending on your experience, but now people tend to stick to one page. They keep it clean and simple. And if you're a creative, especially in the designing branding arena, which is mainly where I am, it's about making it look nice as well. Not being too over the top, but looking nice. Um, I think photographs, again, we don't really put photographs onto CVs anymore. There used to be some very strange passport photographs in the old days, but
Yep.
we don't put those on anymore, which is good. And then education and roles, they're pretty straightforward in reverse order. So obviously the most recent position or education that you've had comes first, and then drop it down. And then include 2 references. Again, you don't have to necessarily put name and title, but you can if you want to. And I would definitely not put any contact numbers or details in there at this point. because once you've put those references down, you'll be asked for permission to, go into them and contact them.
Yeah.
So for that. Any additional languages are brilliant. Obviously, as the world is getting smaller, those sorts of things really, really help. And it just makes you seem and feel much more global. And a lot of companies are asking for, extra languages if possible at the moment. And then any relevant interests to the role that you're applying for, or the company that you're talking to, but also any hobbies that are particularly interesting that show that you might say have team skills or leadership skills, something again that's relevant to what you're applying for or interested in. And then any volunteering work, again, if it's relevant, but also if it's just interesting and it makes something that it makes you stand out a little bit, and it makes the person who's meeting you or the person reading your CV just feel they've got a little bit more about you, because anything human and personal is nice in those situations.
Yeah.
So do include work experience, or it doesn't have to be paid. It can be anything, teaching, mentoring, whatever. Again, in chronological order, and include contact information on you. So make sure they can get a hold of you, make sure it's up to date. LinkedIn profile is always good to have on there too. And then show any recent vocational training, so any courses you've done, anything that's going to put you ahead of everyone else at that point. So anything, Figma training, whatever it might be, is really good. Any foreign language skills. So again, if you're going to put languages on there, make sure you can actually speak or at least write that language. And remember that it's probably going to be in a professional arena. So make sure that it's not just, ordering food in a restaurant, which would be my skill.
Yeah.
And then highlight any relevant personal projects. So if you're writing about some of the personal projects on your CV or on LinkedIn, just highlight anything that, it's more about you and just personal and, relevant to you developing yourself outside of the normal arena of university or whatever.
Do you think LinkedIn is going to probably get rid of CVs? Or do you think it's just the two of them all lie side by side? Because LinkedIn's becoming, lots of universities are sort of really pushing their students to sign up to LinkedIn, fill in all the information, and it's sort of more or less going to be there.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
think I think at the moment LinkedIn seems more it seems to be the first go-to place for, say, in-house talent, that sort of thing. So if you're working at one of the big agencies, I don't know, an Adidas or whatever, you're going to go into LinkedIn first and look for people. So it's really good to be visible on there.
Mm,
Um, but if you're sending yourself out, I think it's good still to have a CV, but also to put your LinkedIn profile on your CV. The two are almost identical generally, but
yeah,
I think LinkedIn allows you to maybe write a little profile about yourself, which is just a few lines, just saying this is what I'm interested in. Um, this is why I'm interested in your company. Would go on your CV. So LinkedIn, I suppose, assume everyone can look at it, everyone can access it. But I think it is probably going to go that way.
yeah,
So things not to do. Don't list every training course. If it's not relevant, it probably doesn't need to be on there. Don't indicate your race, nationality, political views, date of birth, because they're not relevant to that role. And there might be moving forward, you might want to talk about those things, but first stage CV not. Um, so I mean, you don't need to write all of your computer skills, but if there are two or three that are real standouts, it might be worth mentioning them, especially if you're really good at them.
yeah,
And only put interests that are relevant and interesting.
yeah,
um, I mean, some things just aren't important enough to put on a CV.
Yeah.
And don't include your salary details because at that point it's just a CV. And maybe at first or second stage, when you're with them face to face or on screen, they may ask you if they can discuss that, but at this point, it's not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Mhm. And don't put those named references on there and details um, for reasons we've mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
confidentiality really, um, and don't include any photographs. You know, it used to be that we always had to, but you really don't need to now.
Yeah. Yeah. The world's changed. It's,
Yeah, it's changing every day, isn't it? It's hard to keep up, really.
yeah.
So the next few slides go back to what we mentioned about LinkedIn. It's slightly repetitive because the two, obviously fit in together. Um, but but I think, you and I, Patrick, both realize with the world changing that LinkedIn is probably going to be the future. And
Yeah.
strangely, if you have a real problem with stuff like that, LinkedIn has AI features now. So you can almost get help writing it. But a little bit like an exam, be aware that people are going to be reading it and you need to make it about you. And AI is not necessarily going to be personal enough, but it might help you with, say, spelling or at least the bare bones of starting a skeletal piece on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So obviously on LinkedIn, you then have a photo, keep it professional. It can be a passport, but I don't think people want to see you on holiday, dressed not necessarily in all of the right outfits. So
Yeah.
go for it on a photograph, but make it professional. Um, I mean, I think this is really important just in life, be brave, ask, link in with all levels and consider who else they might know. So even if it's a very small introduction, that person, you don't know what their professional world looks like. And if something jumps out at them, they might decide to phone a friend in another company or agency and just say, look, I've come across this CV. They're not right for me, but they sent it to me on LinkedIn. Maybe it's worth you having a chat. And I think a lot of it is on LinkedIn is about that. People passing you on and, dropping you a line saying, do you mind if I share you with someone? It's
Yeah.
really a nice way to work. So um, include a quick message if you contact any new invites and just say, I'm on the lookout for a role or I'd like some work experience. So I'd love you to look at my work and have an opinion. It doesn't need to be, long. It just needs to be quick and nice. Um, if on LinkedIn, it's not it obviously is a social area, but it's not a Facebook. It's not an Instagram. It's not about your necessary personal interests. It's about posting relevant work and relevant things to do with your role and what you do in your background. Um, and the main thing is, just keep growing your network. Um, when I grow my network, which I still do, I tend to link in with people who are going to improve that network and not just random people. So I think stick to it being big but relevant
Yeah.
and keep it up to date. A lot of people don't keep it up to date, especially with creatives. It's worth just putting a link to your portfolio or somewhere where people can view your work, but make sure that's quite up to date work and not very, very old, and make sure it's yours. Obviously,
Yeah.
things like that are pretty clear. Um, and it's a quick reference for an employer. So it doesn't necessarily need to be as long as your CV, but it is a quick reference. So I do think it's important. So I think with all of these things, start strong, grab attention, be very clear and precise about what you want, what the outcome needs to be. So highlight your roles, your skills, um, and then the call to action would be about ending on a confident note. Give me a shout. I'm really open. I'm really great at this. Leave something that's going to be impactful. And there are three key takeaway rules. Less is more, and focus on those three. So, for example, know your audience. So make sure you send the LinkedIn to the right place, preparation, so keep it structured, practice and rehearse and be confident and engage with passion, because I think we're creatives generally, or in a creative arena, and people want to see that passion, they love it. So it's the 5 Ps really when you're doing anything like that. So this tips in very much to interviews, and where once you've opened the doors and once someone has said, fine, we'll have a chat online or face to face, it's about doing those interviews and making them interesting. Um, so before you do an interview, Patrick, I mean, you know this, it's all about preparation, who the company are, what they do, how long they've been around. Even check on LinkedIn who they know, because it might be that you've got some LinkedIn people in common. So if you're at college or whatever, some of those lecturers might have worked with some of those people in those roles. That happens quite a lot, actually. And again, if that's a good relationship, it's something you tap into. You can say, hey, Patrick mentioned it was worth me dropping you something on LinkedIn. So all of those things come back to communication and warmth. And at the interview, I mean, this sounds really obvious, but I have had people turn up for interviews and these aren't necessarily what they've done, but always be on time. That's really, really important. Be clean, be tidy. And if you've done your prep, you know what kind of company they are. So you know if they're a kind of company where it's smart casual or it's jeans or whatever. If it's okay to wear trainers, you will generally have worked that out, hopefully. And the interview starts the second you walk in the door. So I think we've all had jobs, where we've been on reception or we've been in a store or whatever. And we always remember the people who've been nice to us. So remember, the person sitting behind the desk is just as important as the person who's doing the interview. So it's about having respect for everyone you know and everyone you come across. Um,
Good.
so I think that's really important, be nice and the world comes back to you in that way. And also, on the day, you might be nervous. So maybe arrive 10 minutes before the interview. Just sit in reception, be calm. If they offer you anything to drink, ask them for a glass of water. Um, and have some questions ready for the interview, but have them written down. And they won't mind at all if you say, oh, you know what, I wrote them down. I just thought it would be a little bit easier, and they're then front of mind. Um, have those interview questions ready. And you probably need 3. Um, and see how it goes from there. And then after you've done the interview, this is really, really important. I think almost immediately after you've had the interview, get home and write a really nice follow-up email to say thank you for your time. It might be that you didn't enjoy the interview, but every interview leads to something else. So never see it as a closed door. And even if you don't get the job, moving forward, I think manners are everything. And that's one thing that doesn't change. Um, just send a thank you email for that time. So ideas for some interview questions. I just jotted a few down really. Is a role within a team? What does it look like? Again, it's an open question, so it allows them, to mess around with that. Also, is it replacing someone or have they created a new role? I mean, obviously, if they've created a new role, that's quite exciting because you can maybe add to that conversation. And if you're replacing someone, talk about the level they were, where they moved on to. I mean, not too much in depth on that, but ask them what would be great. What does ideal look like? What does it feel like? Um, and what's expected of you day to day in the role, and where's it going? Because it's about you as well, You need to see this meeting as you interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. So ask them what progression you have. Where does your career go within this company? Which is moving on to the career path. So networking, I think, is a really big part of our roles. And I know it's pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone. There are 2 things I really dislike in life: networking and doing on-screen presentations. But I forced myself to do them. Do you enjoy them, Patrick?
Um, I'm like you. I think they've become a necessity,
Yeah,
and I guess Zoom's been brilliant. It's enabled me to meet so many people, and
yeah,
because I've taught in education as well, and I see this as a really good platform to share experience from people like you. We had a 3D illustrator this morning who was an art director for the
mhm,
Financial Times. They may never know these people exist. And then,
mhm,
like I found you on LinkedIn and I was like intrigued that someone who's a little bit different from what I'm doing, who could share sort of an insight, because students, as we all know, they are lost
mhm,
and they go to the careers guides or who they advisors, and they feel like, well, I'm not getting the right advice, I don't know what to do, and they ask the tutors, and the tutors are like, that there's only so much information I can give you. You need to do a lot of this sort of checking yourself. So what was really nice when I kind of came across you is someone who's actually focusing in this field and sort of helping to navigate the space. And I think it seems to us, it seems sometimes quite obvious, but to a young student I'd say 50% of them don't have a clue or even
mhm,
more. So it's just nice to hear, try this, try that. What should my portfolio look like? What should my CV do? Is this relevant? Is that not? And then it's just someone to sort of go, yes, this is kind of a little bit of a dummy's guide of what you could do. And I think
mhm,
it's really this is really handy because I speak to so many people and most of them seem lost,
mhm.
and something quite seems quite simple just helps a little bit of navigation, and I think that's quite nice, and that's what we're trying to do, is help share this with different groups and different people and students, and then hopefully they can navigate from that. And the good thing is this works for any field, so whether it's a creative field or not, because we have creatives and we have non-creatives, so it's really nice, I guess, to sort of bring that into the space. So I am really grateful for this. So it's really handy and sometimes seems obvious to me, but
Mhm.
I know lots of people that would say, I don't know what I'm doing, help. So it's
Yeah,
good. Thank you.
I think just having, I think knowledge is a great thing, but I think sometimes it really is about just saying, you know what, I'll just try. And sometimes I'll send people for interview and they'll say, you know what, the company's not right. And I'll say, okay, no problem. But I'll say, you know what, if it's not through me, I'll just say, go for the interview anyway. What harm can it do? Just hearing your voice and talking really helps. And every interview you do, you just gain a little bit more confidence. Every Zoom conversation, and just build yourself up. And remember that no matter how senior, and I don't know, the most senior people I work with, they really don't like networking. They don't like presentations, but they just they fake it until they make it because that's what we have to do really.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't think experience necessarily means it makes you any more comfortable. It just means you've learned that it is what it is. And I think just starting conversations in a network situation. I went to a network thing a couple of weeks ago, and it's the charity I'm involved in on the mentoring thing, and there was such a lovely atmosphere in the room. But I know for a fact that most of them I'd seen one to one, and they were all really nervous about that evening, and you would never have known that because I think what was lovely is we supported each other, and I recommended that each of them meet someone beforehand and go along with them. So you at least you had someone to sort of do a little bit of a duo with, and you didn't feel nervous about walking in. But once that happened, everyone just started to click. And that's the thing. Once you realize that everyone more or less has the same thing, you all just support each other. So it was a really lovely evening of self-support
Yeah,
and team support.
yeah,
Um, and I think if you're not going to meet them face to face, at least if you've had a little bit of communication, say on a LinkedIn or an email or whatever, it just gives you that added extra confidence.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think that's really helpful.
No, good.
So I think some tips for LinkedIn, just as a little starting thing, really is find who, literally write this down just in notes, what your goal is. Why are you on LinkedIn? I want to make some contacts. I'd really love to know what some agencies are like. I'd love to know what Nike are doing. Where are Adidas based? That sort of thing. And then choose to find those three connections. And also what's brilliant about LinkedIn, before the internet and before LinkedIn, there was no way to find those people. You'd have to write a letter, you'd have to send a fax. You would have no way of doing that. On this, you can find the CEO of anywhere in
Mm.
the world, which is amazing. And you can connect with them. What the hell? I mean, I always ask anyway. They can say no or they can ignore you, but it's a numbers game, really. If they're relevant and they're your target audience, go for it.
Yeah,
Um, so again, try and take a friend or colleague and be prepared to, really push yourself out there. Why not? It's one evening, it's probably an hour, 2 hours. Shake hands and make eye contact. I mean, again, those are things that we've had in the world forever. Remember people's names, which is really tough. But whenever I'm hosting anything, I tend to always put labels out and just say, look, stick a label on so
yeah,
you're comfortable with that. Try and look at the guest lists in advance if you can get it, and research who's going to be there. And it might even worth going up to that person and say, I love the work that you did for whatever, or I love the brand, you're working for Carven, they're brilliant. What, can we, what's next? What's the show going to look like next year? Just
yeah,
show an interest. Um, so why are they there? Who do they want to meet? What are they trying to achieve? So again, if you're with more senior people who are very established in their roles and you've always been nervous about them, or it's a hero or whatever, you just say to them, why have you come tonight? What are your thoughts on the day or whatever? And this is quite a big one. I brought this up at a presentation I did a couple of weeks ago, actually, and I said, I probably don't need to write this, but I'm just going to tell you. And they said, actually, so last year when it happened and I hadn't been there, people had drank too much, and a couple of them were so nervous, and it just got really awkward. So, in my opinion, and this is to me as well, you know, just don't drink if you can help it. If
yeah,
it's an evening thing, just go in a professional mindset.
yeah.
Um, Arrive when it's warming up and don't outstay your welcome. And then be brave. No one enjoys a network evening. I mean, this is personal to me, obviously, but pretty much I've done a survey with lots of people and we all feel the same.
It's sad that no one enjoys them,
I
even though
know
they're
it's
so important. But I guess it's just work, isn't it? It's part of work, and
mhm,
everybody's going there from a sort of non-authentic point of view of I need to find someone who could get me an opportunity to get me somewhere. So you're kind of scouting out opportunities, and also if you go to a networking event and nothing comes of it. But I met another tutor who did a magazine, and he said to me they had been doing this magazine for 4 or 5 years, and he said we just couldn't get anywhere. And then someone had said you need to go to events and you need to network. And he said, the minute we started networking, our magazine took off. And it proves, even, and he said, we hate it like everybody else does. But he said, we go there and then you meet someone and everybody's there for the same purpose. And he said, they were like, oh, we're interested in this, we'll show you that. And he goes, we got advertising opportunities from it and we met so many great people. So I think it's paramount
yeah,
network events that you have to do them. And I do say to students, especially, even if it used to be in the bar or wherever it is, you have to sort of get around. You will get more work through networking than anything else.
yeah.
Anything.
So
It is, I
yeah,
think it's the most important thing you'll get involved with at all. So you have to
mhm,
do it.
yeah. So I think it, push yourself out of your comfort zone. And actually, interestingly, network evenings, there is a common ground because you all know why you're there. It's not a dinner party where you're sitting next to someone you think I don't care, or you're in a bar. You actually have something in common, which is crazy because actually that should make the evening even more relaxed. But I think it's nerves, and we are only human after all.
Yeah.
So I think just smile. If you don't want to ask people, you find that label and you say, have you met so and so? No, I haven't. Hey, yeah, they are. So you just maybe humor it a little bit, or you just find that thing.
Yeah.
Mhm. You find people who are standing alone because they're probably feeling the same as you. Or if you're with someone and you see someone standing alone, just go and introduce yourself. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Generally, people are nice, aren't they?
Yeah.
And you'll have someone in common. That's the thing. The world is such a small place. Again, I'm really transparent about everything in my life, but admit that you struggle with network, even as if you do. Most people will be in the same boat and it breaks the ice.
Mm.
And it adds a bit of humor. Um, Ask people what they do for work. Everyone does something, I'm sure, be it a student or whatever. Um, Again, make a note of people's names on LinkedIn, and I would contact them if you really like them, especially on LinkedIn. I actually had again at this network evening I did the other day. I met a really lovely lady, and we just clicked. We had a lovely chat, and when I left, I remembered her name, but I didn't get anything else. Um, and she dropped me a message on LinkedIn saying, "Paula, it was so nice to meet you. Let's stay in touch." And I made a professional friend that night, and she was really impressive. So again, the next network evening we have, she'll be there as well, so I can find her.
Yeah.
And she had a really good, interesting network when I looked at it, which I did, and we did have a lot of people in common. So yeah, that was lovely actually. Social media. I mean, I'm not amazing on social media. You're really good, Patrick. I think Instagram, use it as a visual thing. So show your portfolio off and keep it like that, really. Your work, your interests, and make it very visual. Be mindful of your online profile that it can be read and it's out there forever.
Yeah.
Um, so just be careful with your opinions and keep it to a professional level.
What's happened? It's stopped.
I
Is that the last slide?
think it might be. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
That went
Just
that went too fast.
I know I talk too quickly, don't I? Oh, but anyway.
No. No, so I guess from a different point of view,
Mhm.
um, so aside of this, when we think about your world and your practice, like if I'm coming to come online to speak to you, um, I guess from a sales point of view, what do you where do you see yourself in the industry, and do you see yourself as someone who comes in and helps navigate through different levels? Because I work with industry professionals, educators, students. Do you move across all planes within your field and then help navigate people to jobs? Uh,
I think if I'm recruiting, I tend to be more the senior end, mainly because of my age. It's reflective, I suppose, in the people I've grown up with through the industry. I work with a charity called Good Nugget, and that I mentor younger people from different backgrounds, that sort of thing. And we basically do a program to help them get work experience. So that I really enjoy that actually because it's a million years ago that I was in that position, but I still remember it. And I still remember that at that time in my career, I could have really done with some extra support and help um, to navigate the industry. So for me, it's quite a thing that's close to my heart to do that. Um, and I think I just enjoy that side of things as I'm getting older, as I'm almost out of the industry because I'm getting older. Um, any way I can help is great, but I obviously still need to earn a living. But with the more junior ones, that's more passing information across, just guiding them. And with companies, it's about being a little bit more, I suppose, commercial. How they present themselves, where they're going. How I can help them really in a different way. So I tend to do a little bit of everything and keep it quite mixed and varied.
And are most of your clients mainly UK people, or is it global?
Um, it's quite global. So historically, I've done quite a lot of work in Australia. At the moment, I've got briefs going on in America and also in France. So it might be based in the agencies might be based in London, but then they might have global offices. So then I will work with them as well. And then the creatives I represent tend to be from anywhere in the world. I'm really open. So
Oh, good.
yeah, and the clients as well. So it's nice. I keep it quite varied because I'm freelance and it's more about doing it so that I can continue to enjoy it
Yeah.
and what I'm passionate about. So
And and what sort of, when you say senior level, are you talking people with 10 to 15 years experience or?
yeah, so usually I work, say, most of the candidates I represent tend to be 8 years and above, and
Okay.
that can go, to very, very senior. So I'll
Okay.
use ECDs, so executive creative directors, heads of strategy, some MDs. So I
Yeah.
tend to do that. And then
Okay.
I'll mentor at a really senior level. So I'll mentor some people at that level, but then I will also mentor very young people just trying to find their way in the industry very early in their career.
Ah, good. Because I guess from my uh, collective of people that I speak to, I've got students who, obviously, through 20 years of working with students who've left and gone on, speaking to one person who's probably going to watch this in time. She became the strategy director for McDonald's,
Mhm,
and she's the sort of person who would be interested in someone like you because she's kind of going freelance. She's had kids now. She does hybrid working through, I think it works in Sweden and then she works in Copenhagen. So
mhm,
they're the sort of characters who, when they watch this, will be like, ah, okay, this is maybe someone that could, because we've got people from who work for Lacoste and different brands,
mhm,
do shapeshift and move.
mhm,
Maybe they don't know who to talk to because they've had one job or two jobs and then they've not gone freelance and they don't understand how to navigate that space. So I guess this is quite a nice eye opener to them. So when I share this, I'll be sharing it to my sort of older cohort of people who've
mhm,
probably had 8 to 10 years experience. And also a lot of our members are, I would say, between the age of 28 to 35 plus. So
mhm. Yeah.
they
Mhm,
are experienced graphic designers from Japan and so on. So I think that it'd be nice for them to see you and then kind of go, and if they were to reach out to you,
mhm.
would be LinkedIn would be the best space for them to contact you.
Yeah, because I don't have a website. So yeah, just drop me a message on LinkedIn. I'm
Okay.
pretty much on there every day. But it's really nice to be putting back into the industry. I was very successful when I worked with agencies as a recruiter, and it's really nice to put something back. So at the younger end, especially, I love doing that, and then at the senior end, sometimes I charge for that, but an initial conversation costs nothing, does it? And so,
Yeah.
and I think the other reason LinkedIn is good at a more senior level is that if you see someone who really stands out and you get to know them, if people are in roles that do like to mentor, so they might not be professional mentors, but they might say, what, I'm happy to, just pair up and once every couple of months have a chat. So, it might be that your friend at who was at McDonald's might choose to mentor someone as well.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can work like that, that you create this really nice sort of brotherhood of man situation within our different creative areas.
Well, I'll push her your way because she's been doing a few talks with me to some of my students. She was an ex-student of mine many years ago, and she's gone on to be really successful. And it's good for students to see, one, success stories, and two, how she'd worked in all these high-profile jobs and then left to have kids, and then now as a freelancer, how she's navigating that space. And I think it's quite interesting to hear from these people, their approaches and
Hmm.
how they kind of speak to people like you, or how people are quite like it's, you're here, which is great. I'm really lucky to have you. And also, like when I get her to speak, she talks about her practice, her work, how she works as a professional, how she shares knowledge, and people are quite sharing. We feel
Hmm.
that they aren't, but we're here now and hopefully going to give this back to people, and people can learn from it or contact you or move forward from it. So I am really grateful, and when
Yeah.
I you popped up, I was like, this is the perfect sort of character I need, because I'm trying to kind of think about how I feel when you leave university or you start working in the industry. What do you do? I went to an agency when I left university because I got an agent, but I also then got a different style of agent who found me a job quite
Hmm.
quickly. And then
Yeah.
they kind of they keep you in discussion, and then they're like, I found another job for you. So kind of you move on with your agent and agency as well. So it's quite a nice relationship that you build up with these
Hmm.
people. And I think, people kind of get lost with what an agent can do or a recruiter. And I think
Yes.
they don't always see the benefits of it, but they're really trying to help you get you the best role, best position, and they do care. So my person who worked with me was great, and I would say don't take that job if it was a startup, and don't do that, and helped me really make a right decision. So
Yeah.
it was great for me as a student leaving because I didn't have a clue. And most
Yeah.
universities
Yeah. Yeah.
don't share that. Like I recently took on an intern from Kingston, and she was saying to me, I don't know anything.
She
And,
probably knows more than she thinks.
yeah, but just even the words for to hear
Yes.
a student talk like this, and I was like, you do, you must know something. And she was like, no, and now I've got to get some experience. No one wants me without experience, and and really, with someone like you hearing this information, it seems so simple, but it isn't. And you
Mhm.
kind of have to, it's a
Yeah.
step-by-step process. So, thank you again. And hopefully, there'll be more little chats like this,
Yeah.
and we'll
Mhm.
get other universities to tap into this and hear from you. So we're so lucky, and thanks again, Paula, and
No,
I'm
it's really
grateful.
lovely. Thank you for offering and thanks for asking me. And I enjoy it. I'd rather be putting it back in now than taking it out. So, I'm really cool with being asked. So thank
Good.
you.
Thank you. All
You do
right.
a great
So
job.
thanks a lot, and have a great evening. And I know it's dinner
Okay.
time for us all. So
Okay.
thanks so much. Bye, Paula. Thank you.
Take care.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.